Hello, good evening and welcome to Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7, coming to you live from our studio here at Adesanwe Kanda, Accra. I am Martin Asiedu-Darteh. Coming up this evening, the Attorney General dismisses concerns raised by suspended Chief Justice Gertrude Tokonu in her supplementary affidavit challenging attempts to remove her from office, including claims of bias leveled against two senior Supreme Court judges. We'll have a breakdown of her latest affidavit for you on this particular subject. Also, former Managing Director of ECG, Samuel Dubik Mahama, interrogated by National Security as Joint Investigative Committee, traces a total of 2,637 previously unaccounted for containers consigned to the ECG. Meanwhile, the minority says the energy minister or the ministry has questions to answer. We'll seek to get some answers to a number of the questions many of you are also asking while the show goes on. Later, we'll also take you to the Ministry of Health, which is urging the public to report any symptoms of rash to the nearest health facility as Ghana records 9 new cases of MPOX, bringing a total count to 19. And information just coming in from the big story from yesterday about Chairman Wontumi is that we understand he has been arrested and detained by Iyoko upon his return to the police headquarters earlier today. We have details of all these stories and more. Be part of the show. We'll be happy to hear from you. Let's settle down for the details of our stories now, and we are going straight to the big one having to do with suspended Chief Justice Gertrude Tokonu. She has launched a scathing attack on the Presidential Committee, probing her removal, accusing it of subjecting her to mental torture, degrading treatment, and systematic violation of her constitutional rights. In a fiery supplementary affidavit filed at the Supreme Court, the Chief Justice, which was done on the 26th of May, she painted a grim picture of an inquiry she claims is designed to humiliate her and force her out of office unjustly. Justice Tokonu's affidavit contains specific details and a litany of grievances, including one, the denial of basic rights. Now, she and her lawyers say that they were barred from using their phones or laptops during the hearing, while petitioners' counsel retained full access, a move she calls deliberate discrimination. Invasion of search. She also indicated that she underwent body searches and was denied family support, with her husband and children refused entry to the hearing room. She had complaints about the venue of the hearing, which is the Osu Castle. Now, she says hearings were held at the Osu Castle, a high security zone, unlike past Article 146 proceedings, which were conducted at the Court of Appeal, at the Courts Complex. She questions the intimidating choice of location and also raised the issue of procedural irregularities and says petitioners were allowed to avoid testifying in person, relying instead on witnesses, a departure from standard inquiry rules requiring cross-examination under oath. So those are the key issues raised by the suspended Chief Justice, Her Ladyship Gertrude Tokonu. Now, the Attorney General also says, in a response to what Madam Chief Justice has been saying, the Attorney General has responded and says, in-camera hearing is a constitutional command geared at safeguarding not only the Chief Justice, but the entire judiciary. It can therefore not be waived. This comes on the back of the Chief Justice asking that her hearing should be made public and not in camera, but the Attorney General thinks otherwise and has responded accordingly. Also, the Attorney General says there is no basis in law for the two Supreme Court judges to be restrained from participating in the petition probe. And specifically on Justice Samuel Adibu Asiedu, the Attorney General says he did not participate in the injunction hearing and can therefore not be precluded. On Justice Gabriel Scott Poamang, the Attorney General argues his participation in cases but before the court by one of the petitioners cannot constitute evidence of bias. The AG further states that members of the committee have taken the necessary oath of office contrary to claims by the suspended Chief Justice. Now, the Attorney General concludes that a case of injunction has not been made out, and that the responses that the Office of the Attorney General has given to the concerns raised by the Chief Justice herself, who, has in the last few days been quite active in trying to, save what is left of her image following recent developments about her suspension as Chief Justice. Let's engage the thoughts and get some legal understanding on this. Martin Pebu is a private legal practitioner. Mr. Pebu, good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, good evening. Good.
Right, to start with, the Chief Justice in her affidavit is alleging violation of her rights and makes reference to body searches and not being allowed access to her phones and other gadgets. She also talks about the venue being intimidating. Are these justified grounds for complaint, and are her rights being violated, you believe?
Okay, this is Marina, right?
This is Martin.
Hey, boy, it looks like a name. I can't recognize your voice anymore. All right. Okay, so Martin, what I see is that we can't give an objective answer to these allegations yet. What I just discussed, the reason is that these allegations the Chief Justice has made, I don't think that's what the Attorney General responded to. Yes, so you see that from what I see, what the Attorney General filed was filed on 26th, that's yesterday, okay? And I see 3 something p.m. Yeah. That the Chief Justice owned to, I see about the same time. It's quite close, and also on the 26th. So what happens in practice is that it is not possible for the Chief Justice to file and the Attorney General to immediately respond the way they are close to each other. I wouldn't even be surprised that if I were to look at the time again, I may find that the Attorney General filed earlier than the Chief Justice. So the short answer is that the Attorney General is yet to respond to those allegations. The Attorney General is yet to respond. So when the Attorney General responds, that one will also be called a supplementary affidavit. But maybe, if you like, let me even take the phone from my ear and then double check. You see that the Attorney General's response. Okay, if you have yours there, you can look at the top.
Okay.
You see that the Attorney General's one is an affidavit in opposition. It's affidavit in opposition. Okay? So that's the first response to what the Chief Justice filed. But that's the earlier thing that the Chief Justice filed on 21st of May, right? But when you go to the Chief Justice one, you see that it says supplementary affidavit. Supplementary affidavit. That means it's an additional one to what she filed earlier. Okay. So the Attorney General is yet to respond to what she has just filed. So let's hold our horses. Our law requires that we don't give answers when we don't have all the facts. Yes, she's made all these allegations. Yes, well, for now, it appears she has a right to complain, right? So let's hold our horses. It will be out of place for anybody to start condemning her when we haven't seen the responses of the Attorney General. Okay. That's what I would say. I'll strongly urge that we don't condemn anything until we've seen the responses of the Attorney General.
All right. So maybe based on what we know of her supplementary affidavit, where she talks about not being allowed access to her gadgets and stuff, just the specifics she's mentioned about the fact that she had to be searched before entrance. Her gadgets have been withheld from her, whilst those that her accusers or lawyers of her accusers had access to theirs, and that they didn't allow her family members in the hearing room. These, according to her, are frustrating and intimidating her. On the face of it, while we even await the responses of the Attorney General. Are these grounds on which you believe she should be the issue should be reconsidered, maybe change of venue, for instance?
Good. So, yes, like I said earlier on, this is the first time that we are getting a lot more insights as to how this particular committee is working. I think we are getting more insights into this particular committee's work than we got during the Charlotte Say one. So it appears that, like I'm saying, it's early days. Yes, I don't want to run ahead of myself. NTV3 and 3FM, we are noted for objectivity. So if we run ahead of ourselves and I say something that, the Attorney General's response would subsequently show that the opinion I've given is not right, we would suffer a public backlash. So we'll wait. Yes, we'll not jump in, but by way of education, I'm not saying Ghana we should copy, but I'm just showing you how sometimes the rules are changed depending on what is at stake.
Right.
But what I'm about to say, I'm not saying Ghana should copy it at all. Look, in the UK, there is this system when it comes to issues bordering on national security. They have this court system where, the accused, right? Let me call the person the accused. One, is not allowed to enter the premises where his case is being determined. The accused won't enter. He doesn't get to see what is going on in there. Rather, there's a special lawyer where he's told that tell the lawyer everything you know. So the lawyer is giving access to the charges, the information, then he relays to the accused. The accused doesn't get, and when I use accused in their home, they will say defendant. But the key thing I'm saying is that person who stands charged, that person who stands to suffer the consequence, he doesn't enter that room, depending on what is at stake as national security. English lawyers are complaining, but the last time I knew, they've not yet scrapped it. So what I'm just saying is that sometimes some of these restrictions may happen. I'm not talking about the Chief Justice matter. That's not one, but I'm just giving education.
Right.
So that's why I'm saying let's wait a bit. But in the UK, where they have been practicing law for centuries, they are centuries ahead of us when it comes to a modern criminal justice system. This system still prevails there. I'm not saying Ghana we should copy. We will not even allow such a thing here. But I'm just telling you that sometimes there are some exigencies that may cause certain conditions to be made. And let me even further add, apart from the person who stands accused not getting the opportunity to enter that room and to see the people who are accusing him, blah, blah, blah. If that person has Martin Asiedu-Darteh as his lawyer, and Martin Asiedu-Darteh doesn't have national security clearance, that's among the lawyers in the UK, there are certain lawyers who have national security clearance. So if Martin Asiedu-Darteh doesn't have national security clearance, then he has to also go and look for another lawyer, maybe Okanse, who has national security clearance, for Okanse to now do the case. So it means that accused is forced to have two lawyers. And obviously that will involve more fees because you already have your lawyer you are comfortable with. But they say, no, this lawyer doesn't have national security clearance. He will not enter that courtroom. And so you go and find another lawyer who has a clearance, and he enters. Right, so I'm giving education. So let's be patient.
Okay.
When the Attorney General responds, then we'll see.
All right, Counsel, thank you so much for this education and clarity you bring to the issue. Grateful for your time. You had the thoughts of private legal practitioner Martin Pebu, who has been giving more or less an education on where the situation stands now regarding the back and forth between the suspended Chief Justice, Madam Gertrude Isaba-Tokonu, and a supposed response that we're told came from the Office of the Attorney General. So we'll certainly try and get the clarity as regards whether or not these responses from the Office of the Attorney General are directly to that of Madam Gertrude Tokonu. And also, you have been following these recent developments with the filing of a supplementary affidavit by the Chief Justice. What are your thoughts on how this matter has been going so far? Mind you, tomorrow the 28th of May is when the hearing will start proper. So a lot is happening, and would be happy to also hear what you make of it in the coming days. And just by way of information, just raising some of the key issues that the Chief Justice touched on. She says, amongst other things, that she and her lawyers were barred or denied the use of their mobile phones and laptops during the hearing, while petitioners, or those that brought the case against her, had their access granted to use their laptops and phones. So she says that move is deliberately discriminatory. Those are her specific words, deliberately discriminatory. Again, she raises the concern of the fact that she had to be searched. A body search was conducted on her, and beyond that, her family were denied access to the room. Says that her husband and children were refused entry to the hearing room. So that in itself for her is also another violation of her rights and that of her immediate family, because according to the report, she would need support or family support in the room. So this denial in itself amounts to that. She also touched on the fact that the use of the specific venue, that is the Osu Castle, as a high security zone for the hearing was intimidating. The choice of word she uses is intimidating. Says that the choice of location is intimidating, whereas per Article 146, proceedings were hitherto conducted at the court complex. So she says the decision to choose this particular location, which is the Osu Castle, in itself was part of the deliberate ploy to intimidate her. So she has raised a question also about the venue. And then another issue she touched on is the procedural irregularity. Says that the petitioners were allowed to avoid testifying. Those that brought the case against her were allowed not to testify in person, and rather relied on witnesses to do the testifying for them. And she says that's a departure from standard inquiry rules requiring cross-examination or regarding cross-examination under oath. So clearly the Chief Justice, suspended Chief Justice, has a number of questions and is seeking answers to them. So subsequently, when we do get further information regarding that, we'll bring it to you. You're still listening to 3FM 92.7. This is Hot Edition. It is on also our Facebook page where we are streaming, and also you can be part of it. Let's hear from you. Our next big topic we are looking at has to do with recent developments from the offices of the Electricity Company of Ghana. You'd recall a few weeks or about a month or two ago, the current Minister for Energy and Green Transition, Samuel Jinapor, John Jinapor, I should say, gave indications that some containers were missing at the Tema port. Well, as of last night, a new updated information from the office of the Energy Minister and the Electricity Company of Ghana indicate that all these containers plus more were found or have been found at different locations. So let me just bring you some specific details. So former Managing Director of the Electricity Company of Ghana, Samuel Dubik Mahama, has been invited by National Security and had his caution statement taken as investigations continue into the discovery of some 2,637 unaccounted for containers consigned to ECG at the Tema port. Some ECG staff have also been asked to step aside to allow for an unfettered investigation into how the containers, originally reported to be 1,300, remained unaccounted for and accumulated significant demurrage costs. The containers, according to a multi-agency investigative committee comprising the National Security, the Ministry of Transport, the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority, and Customs, were found across various port terminals, including the Meridian Port Services and the Ghana Ports and Harbours Terminal. The probe was triggered by inconsistencies in ECG's procurement and port clearance process, where items were consigned directly to the company without arrangement for timely clearance. The Attorney General's office is also expected to provide legal guidance on the next steps to be taken. Let me take you through the information that we got as regards where the containers were found. So the Meridian Port Services alone had about 860 of containers that were assigned to ECG, or ECG's containers had arrived in the country, and 860 of those containers were at the Meridian Port Services terminal. Again, the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority terminal had 1,237 of the containers. Then you look at the ones that had already been evacuated by national security. Those that had been taken out of these ports by the national security in themselves were about 272. At the Amaris terminal, 194 of the containers that were seen there were those that belonged to ECG, and then 20 were seen at Atlas Manufacturing Terminal. And all of these, if you put them together, the number we are getting per the ECG report is 2,637, as against the earlier report of 1,300 containers that we were told had been misplaced or, using the word of the minister, missing. But from all indications, earlier interviews we had with Samuel Dubik Mahama indicated he was of a strong opinion that the containers were not missing because they were not small devices like phones that could simply just disappear into thin air. He was of the opinion that they probably have just been placed at different ports. So if you go to a particular area and you do not find it, it does not mean that those containers are missing. So based on the back of that, a committee was put together, and then they searched various port terminals and came out with the numbers that we have now: 860 at Meridian Port Services, 1,237 at the Gapoha terminal, 272 already evacuated by national security, 194 at the Amaris terminal, and 20 of them at Atlas Manufacturing Terminal. So it simply raises the concern or the issue: what was contained in the report that the energy minister received, for which reason he came to say the containers were missing? And he put together a committee to investigate. The committee came back to confirm the fact that the containers could not be found. But a second committee that was put together that comprised, like I indicated, the Ministry of Transport, Gapoha, Customs, and National Security, they also undertook further search, and on the back of that, found over 2,600 of these containers at different port areas. So that is why the minority, for instance, is raising concern about why they believe the minister needs to come and answer a few more questions. So the spokesperson and head of communications for the Ministry of Energy and Green Transition, Richmond Roxon, has also been speaking on this particular issue and provided some answers as to how these containers were retrieved. He spoke earlier to Beatrice Edu.
You will recall that the previous administration informed the current administration that ECG had 3,000 containers that were uncleared at the port. Of the assumption by this administration and the swearing in as Minister for Energy and Green Transition, the minister had briefings. The briefing he had was contrary to information that had been given earlier. As a matter of concern, the minister caused an investigation into the matter. You will recall that the committee's report, the initial committee's report, was that he had identified over 1,100 containers, but 1,300 of these containers were not accounted for. They had gone there to do a physical inspection. They didn't find it. This triggered an interagency committee comprised of National Security, Ministry of Transport, the Ghana Ports Authority, GRA, and Ministry of Energy. Fortunately, through the work that has been done, 2,637 containers have been traced, and currently there's 2,583 containers in possession of the national security, which are currently at the port.
That's almost half of what was initially retrieved or identified, as it were. How does the ministry how do you take this new revelation coming through?
This goes a long way to confirm the poor procurement practices and data keeping of the previous administration under the BCG. Because as of now, if you give data that you have 3,000 containers, and eventually there's the contrary information that you have 2,005, and then you cannot even produce data to back exactly what you have, then it's difficult. There are facts among the containers that have been retrieved. There are some that some containers that have been retrieved, but there were no data supporting these containers. And there were some containers that have not been retrieved, but data shows that they should be available. And that is why this investigative committee's work is very important and crucial, and that it will continue because the suspicion is that there will be more containers out there, and that once the investigations continue, be able to retrieve more.
Do we know how long they are supposed to continue with its work? Until when?
But as long as it will take, because it's been some time now. If the work of the committee can bring 2,600 at this point, there's absolutely nothing that should stop the committee. The objective is to recover every container that is out there, and number two, to deal with the procurement issues and punish any individual or institution that is involved in this. It's not that the matter has been left to go, no. The matter has been referred to the Attorney General for advice. The investigative bodies are still looking at it. The former managing director of ECG statement has been invited by National Security. His cautionary statement has been taken. Some staff of ECG have been asked to step aside pending investigation. So until the last container is retrieved, until people are punished for these acts, these investigations will continue.
And you heard the voice of Richmond Roxon, who is the spokesperson and head of communications for the Ministry of Energy and Green Transition. Right, now let's try and get some clarity on how all of this plays out in the domain of Ghana's power sector. Nana Amoisi the seventh is the executive director of the Institute for Energy Security. Nana, good evening. Thank you for joining us on 3FM.
Thanks for having me, Martin, and good evening to your listeners.
Right. Do you have an understanding of the explanation that we have been given so far concerning how 1,000 and over containers were said to have been missed, and then those that have been retrieved are way past the number that we were told?
Well, I think that Richmond was trying to provide some clarity on the matter. The indication we take was that during the transition, it was reported that ECG has about 3,000 containers at the port. Then, when the minister took over, he equally got indication that they have at the port about 2,500 containers. And so the disparity between what was conveyed during the transition period and when he took office is what caused him to proceed with an investigation. And during the investigation, as we pick from the ministry, about 1,100 plus containers were identified out of the 2,500 that the minister was looking for. And about 3,300 could not be accounted for. And that's what came out into the public domain. And so today, if we are getting close to 2,600 of containers being accounted for, then it goes close to what ETG declared to the minister, but a little above that. Apart from that, during the search, some containers were found with an Indian company and other places. It means that between the 2,500 declared by ECG and the 3,000 that was declared during transition period, is what we are finding as extra. And so we believe that there could be more in the system that has not been accounted for. And so the search continue.
Right. From all indications, this is quite a major turning point when it has to do with ECG's procurement strategy. The minister has asked that ECG halt all forms of procurement, in line with these types of things that come in container shipments. Is that the way to go, you believe?
Well, when you're doing something that tends to be wrong, the common sense approach is to stop and check again if the direction is confirmed right or wrong. Then you take a new direction. And so halting the procurement process is good, because we get indication that there are some type of cables that have been bought so much that it could last for even more than 10 years. And some of these cables have lifespan. And so you only want to procure when you need them, and not so much that burdens the taxpayer and may go to turn out to be useless at a point. And so we must take a break and look at the whole procurement process, redefine it, retune it, and ensure that due diligence is done through the process so we have value for money.
And finally, we also have been told that probably the interference of political class could be blamed for some of these discrepancies. So, for instance, they are asking maybe an independent state institution must undertake the overhauling, the investigation, and the entire process. Is that a position you share, or because there's a political class that plays a critical role in the day-to-day running of the critical power sector player like ECG, we really cannot do without the political players in this particular issue?
Well, if we choose to be disciplined, we can manage even the political interference. Are you interfering in the process to make it better, or you want to interfere to make it worse? That's what we need to direct our attention to. And we believe that that sort of interference has not bode well for UCG over the past decades. And earlier politicians ceased to meddle in the affair of UCG unnecessarily, the better for the power sector.
Nana Amwesi, the 7th, thank you so much for your time this evening. It's a pleasure talking to you, and he is the Executive Director for Energy Securities, the Institute for Energy Securities, Nana Amwesi, the 7th day. So what do you also make of this new development, which hinges on the fact that the earlier number of containers that we were told had been missing looks as though the committee put together to investigate this has found way more than we thought we had been told earlier. So some are already praising the fact that, yes, then it means that some underhand dealings had gone on, and so it is good that we have found more. And like you just heard, Nana Amwesi, there is a possibility that there could even be more if the search is further intensified. We'll see what the coming days look like regarding this particular issue. And maybe if you also feel strongly about this story, tell us about it. What do you make of this current development, so we can collectively get to the bottom of such a development that affects the country's power sector? 3FM 92.7, this is Hot Edition. We have some more stories for you having to do with the fact that the Ashanti Regional Chairman of the New Patriotic Party, Chairman Wontumi, who arrived yesterday in Accra to meet the CID officials, was released, but a few minutes ago, news coming in indicate that upon his second day of return to the CID offices, he has been detained or rearrested by the offices of IOCO or IOCO officials. We'll get you some specific details in a moment. Before that, let's do some health-related stories, which is also very important. Now, the general public is encouraged to report any symptoms of rash to the nearest health facility. The call made by the Health Minister Kwabena Minta Akando comes on the back of the increase in MPOX cases in the country. So far, 19 cases have been confirmed in 6 regions: the Greater Accra region, the Bono region, the Western region, the Volta, Northeast, Northern and Western regions. Let me take you through the 6 regions that have confirmed these cases. The Greater Accra region is 1, Bono region is 2, the Western region 3, Volta region 4, Northern region 5, and Western North region, making it the 6th region that has recorded MPOX confirmed. And if you put all those numbers together, they come to 19. Ghana has confirmed 10 new cases of MPOX, and according to the health authorities, 3 persons are currently on admission with no death recorded yet. Training on MPOX for teaching and regional hospitals is also currently ongoing in Koforidua and the Eastern region, while contact tracing is also ongoing on the relatives and people who may have come in contact with the 19 cases recorded so far. The health minister, during a media engagement, entreated the general public to be on the lookout and stay safe.
We cannot afford to lose the fight. We are relentless and we pursue this fight. And so, whether we like it or not, we must win this fight. This is affecting the most energetic wing of our population, the youth. And I can tell you that it has consequences on the productivity and, to a large extent, on the economy. And so we cannot afford to lose this fight. The fight is on. We have the commitment of His Excellency the President. We have his total support. We have put measures in place, and we will pursue this and make sure that we win this fight.
And you heard the voice of Kwabena Akanda, who is the minister in charge of health. And also, the minister has also reiterated the need to win the fight against opioids abuse among the youth in the country. Studies have shown that opioid use is more prevalent among young men working in the informal sector to cope with physical pain related to strenuous work and non-physical pain such as anxiety and uncertainty about the future prospects. Access to opioids has become easier due to their illegal importation into the country through the ports and other unapproved routes. And the sector minister is charging all agencies to take up the fight. Speaking at an inaugural event of council members of some 4 agencies under the ministry, Kwabena Akanda charged the members of the Pharmacy Council to help rid the country of opioids.
We cannot afford to lose the fight. We are relentless and we pursue this fight. And so, whether we like it or not, we must win this fight. This is affecting the most energetic wing of our population, the youth. And I can tell you that it has consequences on the productivity and, to a large extent, on the economy. And so we cannot afford to lose this fight. The fight is on. We have the commitment of His Excellency the President. We have his total support. We have put measures in place, and we will pursue this and make sure that we win this fight.
All right, so just a quick clarification. So both voices of the minister you heard had to do with his call for all of us to join the fight against the spread and intake of opioids. And so he earlier spoke on the issue of the outbreak of MPOX, which has been recorded in 6 different regions across the country, and is raising concern that we all need to be minded, and that when people see or feel any kind of rash on their skin, they get to the nearest health facility for attention and treatment. All right, so let's now go to that big story having to do with the chairman of the NPP in the Ashanti region. And what we have gathered indicate that the regional chairman of the NPP in the Ashanti region, Bernard Ntwibo-Esiako, he has been arrested and detained by IOCO upon his return to the police headquarters today. His appearance follows charges of mining without authorization, for which he was granted bail with 2 sureties yesterday. Let's speak to Beatrice Ajokosowa, who is currently at the police headquarters. He's joined us for a quick update on this. Beatrice, good evening. Thank you for joining us. First of all, is there any kind of scene at the police headquarters. What do you see?
Okay, at the moment, we are at the Economic and Crime Office, and we are here with some of the party executives. We understand that the Ashanti Regional Chairman, Bernard Entry, popularly known as Chairman Wontumi, was apprehended upon his departure from the police headquarters earlier today. We are told that he was accosted by some masked men and sent to the Iyoko office. As to what the reason were, we are not known yet. But some of his party executives are here. They believe that this move was unfair. And so we are still waiting to get more information as to what the situation is currently. But earlier today, when he arrived at the police headquarters, this was to follow his bail conditions.
Right.
This was to follow, yeah.
So, yeah, Beatrice, so at least from what you have gathered so far when you arrived at the Iyoko office, it is that Chairman Wontumi is in the grip of Iyoko, and some party officers or party supporters are there describing the arrest of Chairman Wontumi as unfair. Is that the case?
Yes. He's also present. I'm told he's present with his lawyers. And so once we are able to get more information as to what the situation is, we'll update the listeners.
All right, Beatrice, thank you for that update, confirming that the NPP's Ashanti Regional Chairman, Bernard Entry, many of you will know him in political circles as Chairman Wontumi. He was at the police CID head office today, which was the second day. He was expected to return as part of his bail conditions, to still answer questions about 3 charges that have been, slapped on him. 1 having to do with mining without license, 2, entering a forest reserve without permit, and then also polluting water bodies. Now, these 3 charges were leveled against him yesterday, and he was released on bail with 2 sureties, and was expected to come to the police CID office today. So he honored that invitation, and after his meeting with the CID officials, he was out. Immediately he came out, different group of state agency officials picked him up. That's the information we are getting. They picked him up, and he's been sent currently to Iyoko, where he is also with his lawyers. So we are unsure what exactly are the grounds on which Chairman Wontumi has been arrested, but we'll definitely update you when we do get further and better particulars on this particular issue. His lawyer, Andy Apiakubi, has also been sharing his thoughts on a number of the reasons and interactions they've had with the police officials. We'll bring you that thought of Andy Apiakubi in subsequent bulletins. You're still listening to 3FM 92.7. About 10 minutes to top of the hour, 6 p.m. We are live from our studio here at Adesawe, Kanda, Accra. Let your messages come in, and we'll share with the rest of the world. In a related development or issue still in the news, maybe we'll do some education now. Let's go to education now. And candidates sitting for this year's BECE will now be required to select 7 schools for placement before they write the exams. According to the Free Senior High School Secretariat, the move is aimed at easing the pressure on parents and pupils during the placement process. National Free Senior High School Coordinator Okiti Dua made the announcement at the news conference in Accra.
In a major change to the school placement process, candidates for this year's BECE will now be required to select 7 schools before writing their exams. Previously, pupils were allowed to choose their preferred schools after sitting for the BECE. But this often led to agitation among parents and guardians, some accusing teachers of making school selections without their consent. Concerns were also raised over poor placement outcomes, with several students complaining they weren't placed in the schools they actually chose. Now, the Ghana Education Service has reviewed the system.
Candidates who wish to enter SHS TVET schools must, with guidance from parents, guardians, and school authorities, select 7 schools in total, 5 main and 2 alternatives. Your 5 main schools should be ranked in order of preference, with the first being the most preferred choice. Your 2 alternatives should be selected from Appendix 3 for consideration, if not placed in any of your 5 main choices.
The new process will require all BECE candidates to select 7 schools ahead of the exams in a bid to streamline placement and reduce confusion. Okitidia is the National Coordinator for Free SHS Secretariat.
Candidates cannot choose more than 1 from Category A. Candidates cannot select more than 2 schools from Category B. Candidates may select all 5 schools from Category C, 3 boarding, 2 day of them. So we are encouraging parents to look at the Category C column and choose schools for their children from the Category C. Candidates who wish to offer pure TVET programs must select 5 TVET institutions from Category A, B, C, using the same selection criteria as indicated.
She also cautioned that once a student makes their selection, it cannot be changed.
Candidates may also select 1 Category C school as boarding and another Category C school as day. Please note that candidates placed in any of their choices will not be changed.
Meanwhile, the Ministry of Education is in the final stages of negotiations with private schools to be included in the placement process. The move is part of efforts to phase out the double-track system. Deputy Minister of Education, Dr. Clement Apak, says the initiative is a crucial step toward improving access and efficiency in the senior high school placement system.
Meetings have been held, engagements have been done, and we are very certain that with the diligence that we expect from our side and the eagerness of the private schools to participate, the private schools would deliver in their participation.
And that's the voice of the Deputy Minister of Education, Dr. Clement Apak, ended that report by Labour correspondent Daniel Opoku. Let's stay on this issue. Joining us now is the Executive Director of the Africa Education Watch, Kofi Asare. Mr. Asare, good evening. Thank you for joining us. Right. To start with, do you understand this new directive that students must write their must select their schools with the help of their parents, 7 of them, before they write the exam? Is that a new introduction, you believe?
Yeah, I think it's a good reintroduction. That was the existing system prior to COVID. After COVID, the system changed to students selecting their schools after examination. The challenge is that many schools struggle to mobilize students and their parents, to collaborate in selecting schools once they have completed their BEC examination. It was a challenge in many communities, and so reverting to the old system where school placement, school selection happens before BEC means that since schools will be in session, it will be easier to get all candidates and their parents to collaborate with the schools in doing the selection. And so I think it is progress.
And how does that play out if, for instance, you are told to select 7 schools before you write the exam or even after, and the result, should it be based on which schools you believe you can go to after the results are released? And isn't that the real factor that will determine whether or not you get to go to any of these schools anyway?
Well, in the opinion of the ministry, if one selects a school before writing the examination, among others, the person is committed or motivated to put up their best, bearing in mind the school that they are selected and how competitive that particular school is. And so perhaps that is going to do the magic. But having said that, at Africa Education Works, we have always recommended to government that in selecting schools, such selection should take place after the release of examinations. It is after a candidate know their examinations that they are able to undertake school selection with adequate information. You see, when you are selecting your school without any idea about your grades, you are not empowered enough, information-wise, to make that decision because you haven't written the examination or you have no idea about your grades that you have. But where your grades are available, you are able to select schools that are reasonable within your reasonable contemplation, and also you're able to select schools that you know you qualify for. That normally would reduce the excessive demand, sometimes unjustified, on Category A schools, which happens to be the foundation or the breeding grounds for the corruption that we have seen, creeping into the school placement system. But be that as it may, I am supporting this reintroduction simply because it makes the work of schools or teachers much easier because of the struggles teachers go through in remobilizing students and their parents to come and then go through the selection process after they have finished the BCE. And so that is the basis why I think that it is progress. But in terms of providing adequate information for the students and then the candidates, and their parents to make an informed decision on schools that they qualify to attend, I'm sorry, until we get to the point where results of BCE is available, the results are available to candidates and their parents, there will still be gaps in terms of one's preparedness to take the right decision in terms of school selection.
Forgive my reiteration of this question. I'm struggling to understand how selecting the schools before you go and write the exams or after will ease pressure on the Category A schools especially, because whether or not I write the exam now or I select the school after, I will still maybe want to go to an Achimota school or maybe a Prempeh, etc., which are seen as a Category A school. So how does the selection before the exam ease the pressure on the schools?
No, it is not. I do not foresee it easing the pressure on Category A schools. What I said is that it will ease the pressure on junior high schools, the teachers. It will ease the pressure on teachers because teachers go through a lot of difficulties in getting students to come back to school and go through the selection process together with their parents once they have completed their BC. And so it is a lot of burden on teachers. On the other hand, in many of our rural communities, children commute up to 10 kilometers to school daily. Imagine a student completes BEC, after the BEC, and then you ask the students to come back to school for another week or within the next week to go through school placement. That is an extra effort, okay? And so because of that extra effort that teachers have to put in mobilizing students and also their parents to go through the placement process after school is done. You are done for BEC, so school is done. I'm saying that the reversion to the old system will take that burden off the back of parents, of teachers, and also the stress that is accompanied on the part of parents and teachers and the candidates. But let me also add quickly that you see, because we were having the placement done after BEC, when school virtually has vacated,
Another challenge was that you had many students selecting schools with their teachers without the participation of their parents because school is not in session. And so we are hoping that with this reintroduction, it will enhance the participation of parents in decision-making in relation to school selection.
Okay. Thank you for that clarity. Maybe finally and briefly before you go, how does this, because today's program seemed to have focused largely on concerns about placement, but how does that fit into the broader scheme of the free senior high school policy and the changes that this current administration is trying to introduce?
Well, two things. First, I believe that while these, announcements are progressive, there's another announcement where the ministry is having the protocol allocation to category A schools, protocol allocation to public junior high schools in respect of their access to category A schools. It helps to mitigate the impression that government policy is discriminating against private schools instead of providing equity support or equitable interventions for public basic schools. That is great. But having said all this, it is important for us to acknowledge that the key issues surrounding the school selection and placement have to do with the placement and not the selection. The key issue is the unmeritorious placement in many instances, which is a manifestation of the corruption that most times, occurs in the placement system. That is the key issue. And so, as for the school selection, yes, the process is being made much more easier. That's fine. But the eating of the pudding itself is in the actual placement. And so the onus lies on the Ministry of Education to give, not just to give assurance, but then to ensure that when it gets to firmly implementing the placement guidelines it has put in place, the ministry complies. Okay. Because public confidence in the CSSPS is key. And so the ministry must be firm in ensuring that there is a strict implementation of all the guidelines to the extent that we will end up having a meritorious placement exercise this year. That, for me, is the most important thing.
Mr. Asare, pleasure talking to you as always. Thank you very much, Kofi Asare, who is the Executive Director of the Africa Education Watch. So if you have a ward yet to write the BEC, the news is that they must select their schools before they write the exam. And as a parent or a guardian, what do you make of this new directive by the Education Ministry? Do share your thoughts with us. We'll be happy to let the world know about it. This is 3FM 92.7. It's Hot Edition Business with Michael Ogbodu is next.
And hello there, good evening and welcome to the business segment here on Hot Edition with me, Michael Ogbodu. Coming up, Ghana's debt drops by 150 billion cedis in the last 5 months following the current appreciation of the cedi. Details of these and many other stories coming up shortly. Please stay. We'll bring you details of our top story now, and Ghana's total debt burden has been reduced by nearly 150 billion cedis following the appreciation of the cedi against the dollar and major trading currencies. President John Dramani Mahama, speaking in Abidjan at the African Development Bank annual meeting, revealed that the feat became possible as a result of key fiscal and monetary interventions undertaken by his administration over the past 5 months. The cedi is reported to have appreciated by over 20% against the dollar year to date.
Our debt continued to multiply because the cedi continued to grow weaker. And so you needed more CDs. Because our public debt is stated in CDs, the weaker the CD becomes against the foreign currencies, the higher it pushes up your debt. Fortunately, some measures we put in place have recently begun to show results, and the CD has been strengthening. And so we've reduced our total debt over the last 5 months by almost 150 billion CDs, which is very significant. And so if that trajectory continues, the target of reaching 55 to 58% debt sustainability by 2028 will be reached by the end of this year. And that means that it gives us fiscal space to begin to invest in the most productive sectors of the economy. But like I said, we need to look inward, boost domestic revenue, cut wasteful government expenditure, fight corruption, and introduce better accountability in governance. And that is what the focus of my administration is.
And you heard the President John Dramani Mahama speaking there. Now, the Online Drivers Union, Ghana Online Drivers Union, GODU, has announced that users of ride-hailing apps will not benefit from the 15% reduction in transport fares. According to the group, their members were not consulted before the directive was implemented. Executive Chairman of GODU, Francis Tenge, has been speaking to 3 Business, and he insists his members will not partake in the 15% reduction in transport fares.
Our position as Ghana Online Drivers Union regarding this fare reduction are as follows. As a union, we were not involved in this decision making. We were not engaged. We being in the digital space, we should be also recognized when it comes to engaging the transport operators. Fortunately or unfortunately for us, the digital ride-hailing sector, transport operators, we have not been contacted. We have not been engaged as far as this thing is concerned. It makes it a bit difficult and for us. Right now, what we are saying is that if government in their next meeting should be able to engage us so that we also put in our contributions as far as arriving at such decisions are concerned.
So you heard there an executive member of the Ghana Online Drivers Union, George Annan Kesson, rather. Now, the Ghana Revenue Authority, as part of its sustained effort to maximize domestic revenue mobilization, is encouraging small and medium businesses to maintain proper bookkeeping to ensure accurate tax returns. According to Assistant Commissioner Richard Ajago, failure to keep accurate records may lead to tax officials estimating tax payable using their own calculations, which may not be precise. He addressed the media during a tax and good governance education on personal income tax rights and obligations of taxpayers by Spintex TSC.
GRA, thrives on record keeping, taxation for that matter. Without records, taxation cannot thrive. Before one will know what you have to pay as taxes, you must know your income and also your expenditure. And so how do you know that? Before you know that, you need to keep records on your purchases and also keep records on the cost of doing the business and also the expenses you incur. At the end of the day, you strike that to be able to arrive at your income, that is your profit, before your income tax is assessed. And when you come to the indirect taxes too, one will have to keep records on your sales to be able to know your inputs and your outputs. At the end of the day, you strike and then you get to know what is payable in terms of VAT.
So you heard the Assistant Commissioner and Office Manager at the Spintex Taxpayer Office, Richard Ajago, bringing an end to the business segment on Hot Edition. For more business stories, please visit our website, it's 3news.com/business. I am Michael Obudu. Thank you for listening. As always, please stay safe. Up next is Sports, and Bill is on standby. Do stay tuned.
Hello there, good evening and welcome to the sports segment here on the 3FM Hot Edition. My name is Billy Shen. Let's start off from the camp of the Black Stars because the team has finished their final training session ahead of their Unity Cup clash against long-term rivals Nigeria. Now, it is understood that 20 Black Stars players are currently in camp and have been training ahead of that big game in the Unity Cup against Nigeria. And Michael Otieje, who is the general manager for MG Sports, has all the details.
So the Black Stars wrapping up the training for that massive, basically regional derby against Nigeria. It's always a big deal. The team, as you can see in the background, have been training the last one or so. Essentially, it's the Unity Cup, Ghana versus Nigeria at the GTEC Stadium in Brentford. Otuado has trained with 20 players. Now, the rest of the players is expected to come. Mohamed Sadisu, who is one of them, and then Ibrahim Suleimana, who had a cracking end to the season for Atlanta, scoring twice in their run-up to the European Champions. Essentially, Otu has presented this is a big opportunity for him to understand the team better, to get new players in. The technical director will fresh him for saying, pretty much said to me when he said that this is a big opportunity for lots of the young players to stake a big claim on the team. So, massive game. It's about the only opportunity that the country will get with a team before they line up for that World Cup qualifying this September. So a lot at stake against Nigeria. We're bringing you updates on all our platforms.
That game against Nigeria will be taking place at 6:45 p.m. On Wednesday evening. Now, Ghanaian international Iñaki Williams has been adjudged the Sporty La Liga Most Valuable Player Award for Africa for the second consecutive campaign. Now, the award recognizes the best African player in La Liga EA Sports over the season, and this is his first back-to-back, and he's the first back-to-back winner in the history of the awards as well. And 3 Sports put together this report detailing Iñaki Williams' success for his club.
At the final game of the 2024-2025 La Liga season, Athletic Club captain Oscar Di Marcos passed the armband to Iñaki Williams in an emotional ceremony after the former confirmed his retirement following 16 years of service at the club. Williams, who rose through the ranks before featuring for the first team in 2014, has become one of the most prominent voices in the dressing room and the key contributor on the pitch. The 30-year-old made 14 La Liga goal contributions in 35 matches this season, earning the La Liga African MVP award for the second year running. His contribution also helped Athletic Club to place in the UEFA Champions League for the first time in 11 years. The task ahead will be bigger next campaign, but the forward is eager to impress. As one chapter closes with Di Marcos' farewell, another gathers momentum with Williams leading the charge, with the armband now firmly on his arm and the pride of a continent behind him. Iñaki Williams stands ready not just to honor a legacy, but to carve out his own.
It has been a great week for Iñaki Williams. He's now officially the main captain of Athletic Club and also the La Liga African MVP as well. And here is a reaction from Spanish journalist Beñat Gutierrez on Iñaki's latest achievement.
Means a lot. He's been building his career and he's been winning the hearts and soul of the supporters of Athletic. He's overcome so much, and he's been able to convince everyone through his hard work and his kindness. And in the last couple of years, we've seen how some of the big names of the team have been leaving. Muniain left to play for San Lorenzo, Oscar de Marcos recently retiring, so that's turning Iñaki into basically one of the main names in the club and one of the leaders of the locker room, which is very important. And he's been a role model, not just for his brother, who has had to deal with a lot of stuff and a sudden stardom, but for many kids that are raising the ranks of the academy and that look at Iñaki as a very, very good role model and someone that can give you an example on how to get and how to make it.
That was Spanish journalist Bernat Gutierrez on Iñaki's latest achievements as captain of Athletic Club and also the La Liga African MVP. Now, to some other stories, Cristiano Ronaldo has officially announced he will be leaving Al Nassr at the end of the season. The Portuguese superstar's time in Saudi Arabia saw him break scoring records, but unfortunately he failed to next a league trophy for the club. Now, Mutala Yakubu has been exploring his possible destinations, especially with the Club World Cup coming up.
To destination, either he joins Botafogo to play the Club World Cup or he goes back to Sporting Lisbon to retire. For me, he's done his bit for Al Nassr, but everywhere he's gone in the last 2 years, he's breaking the scoring record, but he's not been able to lead them to titles. So Ronaldo wants to play the Club World Cup. Let's see how it goes.
We'll see how it goes in the next few days and weeks. Now let's switch from football to basketball, where the Oklahoma City Thunder have taken a commanding 3-1 lead in their NBA playoff series against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who is the current MVP, and Chet Holmgren had been the standout performers as OKC edged closer to a place in the NBA Finals for the first time since 2012. Now, finally, in tennis, Novak Djokovic began his latest bid for a record-breaking 25th Grand Slam singles title with a commanding win over Mackenzie McDonald. The former world number one ended his wait for a 100th ATP singles title in Geneva last week and maintained his recent upturn in form with a 6-3, 6-3 win over the 98th ranked American. Now, Djokovic, who turned 38 last week, has now won all 21 of his first round matches he's played at Roland Garros. And 6th seed Djokovic will play his next match against will play the winner of the all-French match between Corentin Moutet and Clément Thébault as well in his next round of matches. Bringing an end to sports here on the 3FM Hot Edition. My name is Billy Shen. Of course, we have the rest of the team on standby with a lot more.
FM. 3 FM.
Welcome back to 3FM 92.7. This is Hot Edition live from our studio here at Adesanwe Kanda, Accra. On to some other stories, and the Speaker of Parliament, Alban Bagbin, has cautioned members of Parliament that the legislature would not offer protection to members of Parliament who seek to misuse its privileges to frustrate legitimate investigations. He says parliamentary privilege is not immunity from lawful inquiry, neither is it a license to disregard the law. He said this during his opening remarks of the second meeting of the first session of Parliament on Tuesday.
The immunities granted to the House and its members are designed to protect the independence of the legislature, not to obstruct justice. These provisions are institutional safeguards. They were never intended as escape routes for honorable members. Where allegations are raised, due processes must take their course. Parliament will not stand by while members are subjected to unlawful or politically motivated persecution. But neither will Parliament offer protection to those who seek to misuse its privileges to frustrate legitimate investigations. I will not shelter anybody here. We do not mistake privilege for impunity.
And that's Speaker Alban Bagbin, his first few comments when Parliament reconvened today. Now, before the House rose the last time, key issues that were on the front burner for discussion included the allegation by one of the members of Parliament, especially on the minority side, who had called Dr. Zanetta Rawlings, the daughter of former President Jerry Rawlings, as a daughter of a murderer. Now, the Speaker instituted an investigation into that particular comment, and we are yet to hear the specifics of what they have found out in relation to that issue. But let's hear what the Speaker had to say regarding that matter.
I am very disappointed with all of you that a member seated in this House with all colleagues around and no single colleague can pinpoint to the member who uttered those words. Even those of you sitting together, the three of you that have been identified, the zone is on the trail. Majority members, with your numbers watching the minority, you are telling me that none of you can identify the person who spoke. The minority leader on his feet turned to look in that direction. What is even shocking, with all the cameras and the CCTV, none could capture the person who spoke.
So we all await to see how that particular investigation as to who made those comments of calling Dr. Zanetta Rawlings daughter of a murderer. We'll see how that particular issue plays out now that Parliament has resumed. Now, the Majority Leader, Mahama Ayariga, has also been speaking on issues about the current developments relating to the Attorney General.
The Attorney General and Minister for Justice, the new doing of accountability, is busy preparing prosecutions of massive looting of public funds under the SWAL MPP regime. Even as he is busy in this regard, Honorable Dr. Dominic Ayini will bring to this House a new Conduct of Public Officers Bill, a Criminal and Other Offences Procedure Amendment Bill, State Property and Contract Amendment Bill, and a new Tribunals Bill. By the time we finish passing these bills, the legal architecture of Ghana would have received a significant overhaul. The Attorney General will also introduce several subsidiary legislation, Legal Aid Commission regulations, Supreme Court rules, and very significantly, removal from office of justices of the Supreme Court rules. The President, John Dramani Mahama, is determined to fast-track legislative reforms to strengthen our institutions of governance and further entrench our democracy.
And that is Mahama Yariga, who is the majority leader in Parliament. The deputy minority leader, in the absence of Alexander Penyomaki, who is minority leader, raised issues with what he calls intimidation tactics being deployed by the current administration in the state of affairs. He has also been sharing his thoughts on the first day of Parliament's resumption.
The nation watched in disbelief as the executive launched brazen efforts to remove the Chief Justice of the Republic. An assault not merely on one officer holder, but on the very sanctity of the judicial branch. Equally frightening, Mr. Speaker, is the growing abuse of the coercive powers of the state. National security operatives, some acting with impunity, have taken to raiding the homes of former appointees. I must now turn attention to most troubling development in our nation's foreign affairs. Corruption must be confronted, but such confrontation must be lawful. It is an astonishing and deeply regrettable decision that the government's response to internal administrative failure is to shut down one of our most important missions abroad.
And that's Madam Patricia Appiagyei, who is the deputy minority leader. She has also been sharing her thoughts on the one of the big stories we brought to you today, having to do with the ECG missing containers. The minority side had a point to share on it.
Today we are being told by the same group of people that indeed the containers were not just missing, they just did not do their audits very well, and they've been found at the same tema ports that we were told were missing. The position of the minority is that we are calling on the minister to appear before us in Parliament to give us a full brief of the entire details of what has transpired for the past 3 months when this same issue of missing containers appeared. But we have to make this position very clear that we vehemently oppose the headline from Daily Graphic that says that the containers have been retrieved. They have not been retrieved. They have been found. They were not missing, as per the publication from Daily Graphic.
And you heard one of the minority members of Parliament sharing a thought on the issue of the, the challenge now is to what kind of word to use to describe the earlier issue about the containers. Were they missing? Were they there and they couldn't see it? Or they have now just appeared out of the blue, so they have been found? Well, you are also entitled to let us know how this particular issue be described. But the news regarding the containers is that over 2,000 of them have been found by the committee put together by the Ministry of Energy and Green Transition. So on the back of that, you'd want to make a date with us, 7 o'clock on TV3. Myself and Paul Shagabo have News 360 for you, where we'll bring you updates of all the big stories happening in Ghana and around the world. Do make a date. That's it for the package. I am Martin Asiedu-Darteh. This has been Hot Issues. Have a good evening.